Amazing. Heidi, hi. Welcome, everybody. Welcome,
Hi,
welcome.
everyone.
Great to see everyone joining us. You can have your video on if you can. You'll notice that you are on mute for this call, but just honestly, good to see everyone arriving. I can see some familiar faces already. Love it. Hey, just as we gather and we have a few more people joining us, I'd love you to put in the chat two things. Number one is what you do creatively, and number two, where you are in the world. Vera and I will be getting underway in a little bit, but we just want to hear a little bit about where people are in the world and what people do creatively. I love that. And as I mentioned, you can have video on. We love having video, being able to see people's faces. You don't have to, completely up to you, but it's always great during the call as well. We've got a few more people joining us as we speak. Amazing. So Shannon, design and build websites in Denver, Colorado. Awesome. Hey, Shannon. Good to see you. Good to see you. Fantastic. So if you're just joining us, where in the world you are, where you're coming in from, and also what you do. Just want to add that into the chat just as we gather. Welcome if you're just joining us. I'm actually in Valencia, Spain at the moment. Whereabouts are you, Vera?
I am in Montreal, Canada.
I love it. And we're getting people popping in from all over as well. Omaha, Nebraska. There we go. Hey, Jenny, good to see you. Absolutely. Freelance artist and teacher. Who else have we got here joining in? Just sharing in the chat where you are and what you do before we get underway. We've got a few more people joining us. Hey, Nancy, illustrator. Absolutely. I love that. Stationery designer and illustrator from Munich, Germany. Hey, Sonia, we're both in the same time zone. I love that. Our evening. North Carolina, Antoinette, fantastic. I love that. Awesome. Great, everyone joining us. Let's get underway. I think we should dive straight into it. Over to you, Vera.
Well, welcome, everyone. It is so nice to have you here, and I'm so excited that today we are going to talk about a really cool subject, and that is how to land your dream clients. Logan and I will share some really actionable steps that that are going to help you. And also at the end, you are going to get to ask questions, and we're going to try to answer as many as we can. But if in case we miss your question, we're always going to be available after for email or a DM on Instagram. So before we begin, I'm going to introduce myself briefly. For those who don't know me, my name is Vera Drmanovski, and I am a lettering artist and an illustrator based in Montreal, Canada currently. I just moved here 2 weeks ago from Toronto, so I'm kind of excited to explore the city and, just open this new chapter in my professional and personal life. I have been a freelancer for about a year and a half, and I've had the opportunity to work with some of my dream clients, such as Penguin Random House, The Bookish Box, Audible, UK, AT&T, and many, many others. But as you can see, a lot of my top clients have something in common. They are pretty much related to books. And that is because my dream projects when I started were, to design book covers. So I have worked really hard to land those projects. And not only that I've worked on just book covers, but I've also worked on a series of book covers, single book covers, and I have also done some lettering for just titles for books. But I have also done bookish projects, which are basically products around books. So like t-shirts, or I designed a blanket or a back smelt warmer that had like quotes from books. So these were my dream clients and my dream projects, but the steps that we're going to share with you today are really applicable to any dream client of yours. So basically it's universal for any dreams that you might have or where you want your careers to go. And I am very excited that Logan and I are going to do this, and Logan is going to share really his knowledge on the subject that has helped me a lot. When I took his program, I really struggled with how to land those dream clients. Like I even struggled with narrowing down who they are, like who are those people that I want to work with. I know that I wanted to design book covers, but I really didn't have an action plan on how to do it. So Logan and I worked together, and we are going to today share what we did and how he helped me really land those projects. So who is Logan? Logan is, of course, probably the most famous business coach in creative community because he really specializes in helping creatives start and also build their businesses and taking their businesses to the next level. Logan has completed an entrepreneurship master's and started and grew his business, creative business, for I believe 11 years, right? And during that time, he has learned a lot, the bad and the good of running a creative business. And he knows and understands the struggles of creative people when it comes to running a business, but he also understands our, as I said, our souls, because we are a bit different, different creed, right? So basically he knows and understands how to help us with our insecurities and our introvertness and stuff like that, and get our businesses where they're supposed to go. In addition to that, he has worked with universities and other creative programs around the world, helping creatives to learn and to grow. He's worked with more than hundreds of graphic designers and visual creatives throughout North America and Europe, and help them really grow their businesses by sharing his knowledge and experience. A lot of the creatives have been able to, after working with Logan, leave their daily jobs. Some of them were toxic, some of them were nice, but they just had a different vision for their life. And for others, he has helped really taking their business to the next level by, taking them from 1K to 5K a month, or even above 25K. So really, the sky's the limit. It's up to you. And without further ado, let's hear from Logan.
So great to be here, Vera, and thanks for having me along and collaborating. This is so fun. Look, we're going to have a really good training today. Yeah, it's great. And look, just really excited about this topic because it's such an important one. And, I'll just, before we kind of dive into it, I'm going to share a couple of things. Vera's already given a great intro, which is great. So you've kind of got the overview about myself. The thing I do also share, I'm a New Zealander, if you didn't catch that. So that's where the funny accent you're hearing is coming from. Some people are like, is it English? I'm not sure. Maybe Australia. It's New Zealand. There we go. So I don't, however, spend that much time in New Zealand. I do run my business fully remotely. So I'm currently in Spain for a month, which is fantastic. I tend to spend a month in different cities around the world as bases, which is good. Occasionally getting to New Zealand as well. And then occasionally I run retreats as well. Some of you might know my good friend Elliott, whom I just ran a retreat with in Morocco, which was fantastic. So awesome. All right, we're going to be jumping into it. So honestly, there's a few things I'm excited about as we get into today. One of them is that we are giving away 3 freebie coaching calls as part of this. These are free, a 30-minute call with me. We are just going to select people. I'm going to drop in the chat the survey that you can fill in if this is interesting for you. So it's a pretty quick survey. You fill it in, and then we're choosing 3 people to get on 30-minute calls with me. Plus, we'll be giving some extra calls away to have with Paul, who's our creative business specialist on the team as well. The survey is really good because it also helps you to see what challenges are getting in your way and also get a really good idea of where you're at. A lot of people see value of just doing the survey, which is great. Within that too, so definitely check that out. We'll make sure we put it in the email and things we send out afterwards as well if you are watching the recording, which is great. What I would love everyone to do just as we get started is to drop in your Instagram into the chat. So it's something where love being able to connect with you all, but also get you connecting with each other. Try and not put the @ put the actual URL of your Instagram in there so you can get connecting. I'll fire our one in there as well, so with Vera. But this is just such a nice way to connect with other awesome people as we get into this awesome webinar that we're going to be running. So landing your dream client. This is a huge subject because one of the biggest things I see in creative business from talking to many, many people is that most people struggle with enough people knowing they exist. So we talk to all these amazing people all the time who are really amazing at what they do creatively, right? So they're really good at their creative craft, whether you're an illustrator or a designer of some sort. We work with muralists, we work with all sorts of people in these creative visual areas, but we see again and again that we see people who are very good at what they do creatively, but they really struggle with the business side. And specifically, the struggle is often around marketing and actually finding those dream clients. And occasionally we actually work with people who have already been in business for a number of years. And they're like, Logan, I'm busy and things are happening and I've got, work, but I'm not working with the clients I want to be working with. And maybe I feel a bit overloaded. I'm not getting to be creative like I want to. So what can I do? So that's why we structured this webinar around this idea of landing your dream clients. I'm going to be taking you through 5 key points. Vera's going to be sharing some thoughts around them as well, which will be really good. So take lots of notes. Reminder that we are doing some Q&A time at the end as well. We'll try and allow some time. So maybe think up a question you could ask and we'll answer as many of them as we can. You can just drop them in the chat right at the end when it's time. I'll give you a heads up as well when that's coming. All right, number 1, getting clear on your target market. Oh, it's a big businessy term that some people like when they hear me say that, they're like, target market, like, oh, target market, it sounds terrifying. It's just getting clear on the type of people you would love to work with, getting clear on who that dream client actually is. And sometimes when we talk to people, we're like, hey, who do you want to work with? They're like, Logan, anyone, literally anyone that loves what I do. Now, the problem with that approach is that if you try and promote yourself and market to everyone, well, nobody is going to feel like that you're actually talking to them. They're going to feel like you're talking to someone else because your approach is too wide. The thing with really getting focused as to who you want to work with, it actually means you then know who to market towards. So, for example, if you are wanting to lean into outreach or connecting with people, you know where to go and you know who to connect with. So if you're like, I would love to work with cafe owners. Okay, great. That means you can get specific about targeting cafe owners with your messaging. For example, sending cold emails to them. Lots of ways to market. Cold emails is just one of them. But honestly, that's the place to start, is getting clear on who you want to work with. Not just everybody, because otherwise people won't relate to your message. So I'm just going to share a couple of specifics around this. A big starter on this is look at who you've already worked with in the past. Right, so if you already have an existing business or you've done some creative work, just look at who they are and why they liked it. Because you might be like, great, this person loved working with me, I loved working with them. How do I expand that? How do I find more of those people? If I found 10 more of those people, great. Okay, well, that could be a really good person to work with, and think about who they are and maybe who they work with or what they do, those things there as well. The other thing is just thinking about who you might want to work with. Right, so this is leaning in and going, okay, well, who do I think I would like to work with, or which organizations would I like to work with that would also like to work with me as well, right? So they might have some interest. Current networks, another thing that people forget about is it's always easier to work with people in your current network. So these are people you're connected with in some way. So maybe it's, for example, I mentioned cafes. You might have a previous job where you know cafe owners through that, or you might have a previous job where you have colleagues in a student and had colleagues in a student industry. So thinking about your own network can really help you to think about targeting in as well. The final thing I'll share here is that part of it's just about experimentation. So sometimes we have clients, and one of the things we get our clients to do is really get defined around the clients that they're going to be working with and who they are and what they would look like and those things there. Sometimes they're like, I don't know if this is the perfect person or not. And we're like, that's fine. Sometimes you just need to put stake in the ground and go, I'm going to go talk to those people and see if I can build a business around working with them, or grow my business around working with more of them. You're not always going to know. Part of it is going to be an experiment. It's a fun fact I don't share very often, but my first degree, I did do my business entrepreneurship masters, but my first degree was actually in science, surprisingly enough. I think I'm still a scientist in business as well, because so much of running your own creative business is actually experimentation and trying things. And this might include trying working with certain people, and that's that target market stuff as well. What are your thoughts around this stuff, Vera, from your own experiences, obviously, in growing your business and those things there?
Yes, it was really important for me to actually figure out who are those people that I wanted to work with before we you and I worked together and we had that specific approach, I was really just swimming in a sea of fish, and I didn't know who to really target. And from the moment I realized, okay, these are the types of projects that I want to work on, and these are the people that have the power to make that available, I have been able to hone in on what type of projects, personal projects I want to do, so that I can, before I actually have the real projects in hand, I can go in front of those people and say, okay, I can do this, I just need a shot. So it's really important to know who your target market is, and then you can also create a portfolio that is catered to exactly those people, and you can go in front of them with already established work, even though it's not maybe a client work, but you can still do a lot of personal work before you get that first shot. So don't be discouraged. My I guess my point here is, don't be discouraged if you haven't worked with those dream clients yet. That you can just make work as if you had, and just go ahead and contact them. And yeah, I think that's really important. Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love it. No, so, and, I think it's so great being able to see your experiences from this as well, and for everyone to hear them too. So look, the next thing we're going to talk about here is focus. And we're talking more about the focus of how you market. Now, most people we work with, creative people, they don't actually want to spend lots of time on the business stuff. They want to ideally have some systems in place, and they don't want to spend lots of time marketing because you prefer the creative side of the business, and that totally makes sense. So a really core way of looking at this is what we call having a primary and a secondary marketing strategy. So when we talk about this, what I'm really saying is having a core strategy. So a primary core marketing strategy is so important. So a lot of you hear online, oh, you've got to be everywhere, you've got to do this, you've got to be on TikTok, you've got to be on LinkedIn, you've got to be on Instagram, you go, whoa, and it's super overwhelming. Actually, you want to focus. Focusing on one area of marketing is really, really powerful. And I'm going to share kind of a couple of caveats around this, because there's more to it than just one thing. We talk about the primary thing. That's where you're going to spend the most of your energy. Now, sometimes when we start working with people, they don't actually know what it is. So yes, there's experimentation. There's that word again. They need to try and test some things out, maybe review what's worked in the past. So for example, sometimes people say, oh, do I have to be on Instagram? Do I have to use Instagram to market? And I always say, look, Instagram's a great tool. We have clients that, yes, their core marketing strategy is Instagram. But we've also got plenty of other clients that it's not. Right? We've got clients that it's outreach, we've got clients that it's partnerships, we've got clients that it's networking, and we've got clients that focus on other areas. So being able to lean into one thing mostly is what we really recommend. And then you have your secondary strategies. So for example, if your primary way of finding new work and new opportunities is through networking and connecting with people, and through that way, and attending networking events online and offline where you can, well, you still want to have secondary strategies in place, like Instagram. So even if Instagram is not your primary way of marketing, you still want to have Instagram. However, it means that you don't need to post there as often. So, sometimes people are saying, well, I think my primary marketing strategy is Instagram. And I say, okay, well, that means you've pretty much got to be all in that space, which means you need to keep learning about it. It means you probably need to be doing posts most days. You probably need to be doing reels. So it's really leaning into the thing, the core thing. But for the people that are like, no, it's not Instagram, it's something else, you could do a post on Instagram a couple of times a week, and that's totally fine, because the people that you're networking with and connecting with, they might still go look you up on Instagram. So really thinking about what are those other things you do to support, and that's another thing we use, and another word we use is supporting strategy. So you have your core primary strategy, and then you have your secondary strategies, or your supporting strategies around that. I think marketing can feel pretty overwhelming, and this approach here really means that you're really leaning in and getting better at one area, and then having some smaller areas to focus on as well. I'd love to hear your perspectives around this, Vera, from obviously the work we've done and growing your business.
Yeah, as you said, like before we spoke, I really thought that you have to be on as many platforms as possible, because that was the word on the street. And honestly, it was excruciating for me. It was like so energy draining. I was basically just really lost, like, because you can't be everywhere. It's just impossible. And, it felt like I'm nowhere enough, like I'm everywhere, but nowhere really enough. And that really didn't bring any fruits at all. And then once we talked and you told me that basically I need to pick one. And of course, it was Instagram for me as well, as probably most of us. It became a lot easier for me to plan my marketing strategy, to focus on it. It just became more, Instagram became more like a supporting portfolio to my main portfolio, because of course we create a lot of artwork, by doing challenges and stuff like that to connect with communities, but you're not going to put everything in your portfolio. However, those are, again, awesome pieces that you can use as a supporting portfolio because your clients, I think no matter what, they're going to sooner or later check out your Instagram because they know that they can see more on there. And it was really just sort of like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders when I realized that I can only focus on one platform. And then when a supporting platform, for me, it can be like, for me, I'm looking into more like Behance at this point, because I've heard that, clients do often go there, but I'm not as focused as on Instagram, but it's still there. And another thing that I am doing as a supporting strategy, and it worked, basically that's the strategy that landed me the project with Penguin Random House, is featuring, or at least applying to get my work featured on blogs where those, the people that you want to work with basically hang out. So I found the blog where our directors are hanging out, and I applied my project there, a personal project, and I got seen by the creative director of Penguin Random House, and that's basically how it landed me that job. Because I also realized that not all of them hang on the Instagram. So that was sort of my supporting strategy, really targeted for the specific target market that I wanted to work with. So that's another thing that you can look into, figure out where your dream clients hang out apart from your main marketing strategy, and make that as a secondary strategy.
So powerful. And once again, just great to hear the real life stuff as well of how people are using, how Vera's using this as well. Look, we're going to dive into talking about email, and specifically email outreach next. And this is kind of an interesting topic because a lot of people we work with really struggle with this. And it's like, oh, email, you mean like those spam emails that we all get? We all get spam emails these days. And I'm saying, no, this is you and your amazing creativity that is being emailed about. It's quite different. So look, in the end, email outreach is still working. This is still a strategy you can do. And one of the things that we quite like about it is that it is just really about you taking action on this and creating a template, and then actually focusing on putting some time into this. So, often our strategy is you don't need to email 100 people right now. You just need to email one, and then get more comfortable with the process as well. So there's that word again, experimentation. Experimentation is definitely part of this. So I'm just going to share a few ideas around what you can include in cold email copy. So this is what to include in an email that you're going to send out to someone. And this really specifically is someone that has never heard of you before. So this is what we call cold email. You've done some research, you've found some contacts, you've found some names online, you've found some emails, and you're now sending an email out. First thing I'll say is there's lots of different ways to do this. And part of it is experimentation, trying some stuff. So we've actually seen sometimes emails that seem to be the perfect setup don't seem to work. We've seen others that are like, kind of okay, they seem to work. So it's really about trying some different strategies as well, and moving forward and testing them out. So a couple of just tips around what to include. If you can include their name, that's a huge bonus. So, yes, sometimes it's hard to know who you're emailing because you've got the info at or hello at. But if you can find someone's name in that organization, or you're emailing an individual and you can use their name in the email, that's going to be much more personal. Sometimes you can kind of use a bit of a trick there. If you're not sure, you can actually sometimes even put like the person's name at the organization, and it might get through to them that way. There's some different things you can do around that too. Or if it's an info at, you could address it to, to whom it's my concern, or, to who this is. I would love you to connect me with the right person I'm looking for. Maybe it's an art director, so that you can get this email forwarded on. to a person who is the person that you're going to be talking to. So you don't have to include their name. If you just can't find it, it's still worth sending the email, but a good thing to do, a bit of extra research to try and find those names. If you're going to use email templates, which most people do because it's really time consuming to just write a new email every time, make sure that you do personalize it each time. So you might have a template, it's a starting point. That's great. You put that in there, but then you're going to change some of the details and you're going to personalize some of the information. So it could be some things around how you found them. So how you came across their information, even if it's just as simple as, hey, I came across your website, or I was looking around online for awesome places or people that may love my work. I came across your work, or I've been following you on Instagram, or whatever it is. People are always like, how did you find me? Right? So if you're just upfront and you're like, here's how I found you, it kind of takes away and a bit of that like tension of where did you get my information from? So that's a good thing to mention, but then personalize it. Actually, maybe you've spent some time on their website and actually mention that and say, hey, I was looking at your website. Or, if it is a cafe, as an example from before, I've been to your cafe, or I've driven past your cafe, or a reference point. Sometimes if it's an organization you know of, you could mention a reference of, I use your products or services or something like that. It's not always possible, but something to show this is just not a bland template email. We all get, well, I definitely get a lot of them, those like bland template emails where clearly copy, paste, send. And it's more likely to end up in their spam filter because it's a repetitive thing. But also it's more likely to not get open or them to completely ignore it or mark it as spam itself. So, it's good to mention those things. Then, of course, sharing something about yourself and how you can help them, what it is, but you can't share too much. I see people doing this wrong. If you share a big page of information, they're not going to read it. You've got to keep it pretty short. You can do basically a bit of information about, here's me, here's perhaps a link if you want to find out more. And you could even share, here's the next step, or hey, if you're interested, feel free to get in touch. What I quite like doing and getting our clients to do is even what we call doing an A/B test. So an A/B test is actually when you try two different strategies at the same time. So in your emails that you're sending, every second person, you send a different type of email. Maybe one is slightly longer and one is slightly shorter. And you send the same version each time within that. And you look at the numbers of how many opens you get or how many replies you get to those different ones. You might find actually in your case, for you, your personality, what you do, you may find a slightly longer one may work better, or you might find the shorter one. So you don't have to do this A/B test thing, but it can be a good idea. You could even try a different version of what you share. So it could be what you're saying in the email or how you personalize it and those things there. So lots of different things to test out and try, but also you can do some research online, and there is often people have different templates and ways they use this, but you need to just try different things over time as well. I know this is something that you've done as well, Vera. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this in terms of, cold emailing and things to include, anything else there from your perspective.
Yes, I have done some experimentation, and I've basically tried very simple, so no design at all, like just very simple sentence and a link to my portfolio without any attachments. And I've also tried a little bit more designed version where it looks like almost like a newsletter, and there's a PDF attached to it, because I've heard that, sometimes I've heard people saying that if you have a PDF attachment, it goes to junk. Then other people were saying that, they actually got like replies from that. So I've tried both. For me, what worked is just very simple, like very short email that worked the best. Honestly, no design, nothing. Like I've got the most replies from those, probably because it was short and simple, and those people just don't have a lot of time to read through, and it didn't sound, or it didn't, at least it didn't look like a newsletter. So I sort of took a step back from those like design nice versions of the emails that look like newsletters, because I felt maybe people think there's just like a spam newsletter. So so it was a failure for me, even though I spend a lot more time on that one than on the other one, which is just text. So as Logan said, just experiment and see what works. I've also noticed that people don't really, at least in my case, don't really look at the, because I always say at the end of the email, is it okay if I send you a PDF with my work? Most of the art directors really just click on my website and they would reply with, I already went to your website, great work, we're going to keep you in mind, or whatever, depending on the reply. But basically, rarely no one actually said to me, yeah, send me the PDF. So I think maybe PDFs are, I don't know, in my case, a thing of the past. I don't know. It's just my experience, but I've heard many people do still attach them and they work for them. So I don't think, as Logan said, I don't think there's one right answer. It is very important for you to try. I have a PDF prepared in case somebody says, yes, please do send me a PDF. So I'm still ready for those answers as well, but it's very important to have your link to the website or even at Instagram, both, you can have those in the email, and people do click. They look, the ones that are interested, they're going to look at your portfolio. So make sure you also have your portfolio targeted for your target audience and ready to go.
I love it. So good. And, this kind of is a nice run into the next point that I'm going to dive into, which is really around the numbers involved here. And this is really around what we call the numbers game. So kind of a classic thing is, sometimes this is when we start working with a client who's maybe been in business for a bit, or they might be early stage and they might be like, email outreach. I would say them, email outreach. And they'll be like, no, I've tried that, doesn't work. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let's dive into it. Like, how many emails did you send? And they're like, oh, I sent like 30 emails. And often it's actually a lot less. I sent like 10 emails. Didn't work. I got a couple of replies. And I'm afraid to say we need to send a lot more than that. Now, that may sound really overwhelming. And that's why often we've got to start small. We've got to learn the process. We've got to put templates in place. And then we've got to consistently start sending them. So look, yes, if you send 30 emails, we've had clients that have done that, sent 30 emails over a few weeks, and they've got work from that. It can definitely happen, but often it is a bit of a numbers game. What we tend to see is about a 10 to 20% reply rate is actually good. Okay, and this is if you've already kind of maybe even done some experimentation and you're trying some different things, just like what Vera said, you still might only get a 10 or 20% reply rate. Remember, I'm saying reply rate, I'm not saying booking rate. I'm not saying that they're agreeing to work with you, they're just replying. They might even reply saying, not interested, please take me off this list. Or they might reply with, hey, okay, cool, I'll keep you in mind for the future. That is still a reply. So actually, it is a bit of a numbers game. And if you think about those numbers there, well, if you send 30 emails over a few weeks, well, a 10% reply rate says that only 3 people might even reply. It could be 1, it could be none, it could be 6. So based on that there, actually, we do need to send more consistently. And yes, once again, I'm not saying go out right now and send 100 tomorrow because we don't have the time for that. But in building up that skill of sending emails consistently is certainly part of that. It's the same around that A/B test I was talking about as well. I've sort of heard people who have tried the A/B test and they said, oh, well, I found this strategy works really well. And I'm like, great, how many emails was that based off? And they're like, well, I sent 20 emails total. And I'm like, well, the statistics here just aren't relevant enough. You really got to send 50 emails of each type to really start to really understand what's going on here. So these are just good things for you to keep in mind as well, because I know it can be a bit depressing to think of the numbers to send them, but also this is marketing that you can do. There's other ways you can market for sure. This is just one way you can reach those dream clients because it's very directed. That's the thing I do love about this form of marketing is you can actually directly talk to these people that you really want to talk to, but it comes down to numbers. And I get it. Like you've done some research, you've sent out 10 emails and then you wait. Nobody replies, you get one reply, you go, well, it was a waste of time. I'm never going to do this again. Well, yes, it's a consistency thing. If you do that every week, it is going to start working. It just may take a bit of time as well. So yeah, it's an interesting perspective here, but we'd love to hear your thoughts around this as well, Vera, in terms of the numbers game, as we call it.
The numbers game, yes, that's exactly what it is. It's really the numbers game. And I honestly, in the beginning, I was like that. Like I send a few and then nobody replies and I get totally discouraged and I don't do it ever again. Until Logan told me that that's not how it works. So basically I am trying to, have in my schedule a day when I'm doing the research, when I'm finding the names and the people, because it is time consuming and nobody's going to deny that. You have to sort of literally allocates times for it, just like you're allocating time for client work or any other like business related tasks that you need to do. And this is one of the things you need to put in your calendar. And I found that for me, it works best if I know exactly, okay, on Mondays, I'm doing the research, on Wednesdays, I'm sending emails from that and that time. Because if I don't do it like that, it'll just keep like, you know, it'll always be like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, and just never going to get done. So it's really important to make that a part of a habit. It is going to take time for you to become, I'm still not comfortable with it, but I have to do it. It's just something that I have to do. And even though, you know, it's, I don't even know why it's uncomfortable. Like, no, but like, honestly, people, the replies that I've gotten from people, they're always very nice. Like those ones who don't reply, I don't know what they're thinking. So they're really not impacting me. So it's just more in my head, but I am, you know, working through it. I'm doing it anyways, you know, like face your fears and do it anyway. So kind of a approach, and that's it. Like just, yeah, keep at it and keep sending, and don't get discouraged, because it will work. And sooner or later, you know, somebody will come back with a project of your dreams. And yeah, it just has to happen. As Logan said, it is the numbers game, and those numbers at one point are going to start working in your favor.
You know, it's really common, like, you know, Vera sharing here, it's really common. Like most people we work with are pretty uncomfortable with doing cold outreach, even as a strategy, and trying that out. So like, just remember, this is something you don't need to send 100 emails right away. You start with one, you start with a template, you start finding one contact. So it's really start small, and you build up that confidence around that. And Vera's right. Like we're always, you know, we've got clients that do the cold email thing, and we're always surprised how, like, pretty much never people get something really nasty and negative back. And that, I think that's one of our fears, is we're putting ourselves out there, and someone might be like, how dare you email me, who do you think you are, and your artwork is terrible. And you know, that's one of the fears that I think holds us back from doing it. But the reality is it's super rare. Actually, it's incredibly rare that even happens. And even the slightly terse emails are replies are just like, please take me off this list. It's not even really that bad. So I think that's a really interesting piece here, of that as well. And I think, kind of like I said at the start, was often it's connected to how we feel when we get spammy emails. It's like, this is not spammy emails. This is you doing the research and connecting with the people that you think that would be interested in your work. So, you know, we often imagine us being the spammy person, but actually no. And the other thing I'll share here is, no offense to anyone selling vacuum cleaners, but we are not selling vacuum cleaners. You are selling amazing creative work, designs, these things here. So it's not like you're selling something that isn't exciting and unique and interesting. It's, you know, you all have amazing things that you're bringing to the world. So, you know, that's why we do need to do this, even the stuff that feels scary and might feel, you know, sometimes a bit icky as well, as we shared. So look, we are going to be jumping into Q&A time next. So if you do have a question you want to ask, it can be, we're pretty open book on this stuff. Is anything related to the webinar or any other things around, you know, creative business, things you need support with, do you want to just pop questions in the chat, and we'll address, you know, as many of them as we can. We'll keep an eye on that chat. I do have a couple that were sent through to us beforehand that we can jump into, but just a reminder, we've got the Q&A coming up. So before we do that, I do have one more thing that we're going to dive into, which is basically back to, obviously, the dream clients. Another way to find your dream clients is through Instagram, right? So you can actually use Instagram as a tool to market, just like we've gone into around cold email as well. And what I typically see is that lots of people using Instagram, and some people even have lots of followers. Not everyone has lots of followers, and that's fine as well. There's lots of ways you can use Instagram to attract and also find those dream clients. But a lot of the things that you can do, most people don't actually do. So one of the really common things I see when I go and check out people's Instagrams, and I see a lot of people's Instagram accounts, is that it's just not clear that they're actually available to work with, or available for hire, or available to actually commission. Because you go and you're like, wow, they've got really cool designs, artwork, but there's nothing that sort of says they're available. So you've got to make it clear, and there's lots of ways to do that. You can put in your profile, it could be through the post that you're doing, but it could be through just on your profile, literally saying available for commissions, available for hire. available for freelance. We even have some clients that sometimes say like, currently booking July. So, you might be put even a specific period there, taking July bookings, taking August bookings. You can do that as well, but it needs to be pretty clear that you are available. The other thing is that you can actually do what we call a blunt post. A blunt post is exactly what it sounds like. It's a post that is really blunt, and it's basically saying, I am available over here. I'm available. Now, it's a marketing, it's a promotional post. Now, whenever you do this, yes, your engagement will be terrible, right? So anytime you do something that's a bit more promotion salesy, it's just going to be terrible. We work about 10% of people we work with have big followings. It's exactly the same for them as well. Now, the main reason to do that occasionally is to make people aware that you are actually available for hire. So you can do a post. Yes, you'll get low engagement, but people will see it. And also, maybe you were at a networking event and you met someone, they're going to scroll down and have a look. And if there's nothing there that shows you're available for hire, then they may not reach out to you because they're like, oh, well, I'm not really too sure. I'm not saying you have to do blunt posts, but this is something you can do. Also, even just displaying examples of your work being used is a really powerful one as well. So this is where maybe it's past clients you've worked with or applications of your work or mock-ups of your work on Instagram. It helps people to see what's possible with your creativity, with your designs as well. And it helps to show you that maybe you are already working with clients as well. There's a few other different things you can do here to really, create opportunities through Instagram. And one of them is through creating what we call a lead magnet. Lead magnet is just a downloadable freebie that you basically give in return for their email address. So part of what you can do is you can take your Instagram audience and you can build an email list off them. And the easiest way to do that is to have a free downloadable that you think they might be interested in and connect it to your email platform and put it in your link tree. You can do a post, you can do a story about it, you can save that story to highlights, lots of things you can do around this. But basically, it's a way to take someone who's following you on Instagram to download something, a freebie of some sort from you. They're now on your email list, and now you can use your email list to connect with them. You could just send them a cold email, or you could also be getting them an email newsletter, which you send them, and that may contain things that have more information about how they can work with you or the current projects you're working on as well. So these are just a few things to think about. I'm not going to sort of dive into it in too much detail, but another area to think about is the DMs. So direct messaging on Instagram is pretty underutilized, and particularly creative industry. People think, oh no, just kind of direct message with friends and connections. No, you can direct message with people you might want to work with. When you think about that cold emailing, you can also do DMing as well. Now, there's lots of strategy stuff around this, but you can actually direct message your current followers. See who's following you, and if there's people who you think might be potential clients, you start a conversation. And hear me there, start a conversation. I didn't say sell to them, promote to them. I'm saying just start a conversation. It can be pretty light, just connecting with them because you're just talking to another human. And I think this is what people sometimes get wrong when it comes to this strategy here is they go into the direct messages. Hey, are you interested in working with me? Hey, here's my information. Here's this here. Here's that here. And they're just like, wow, okay, like, hi. And they're just going to ignore you. They're going to maybe unfollow you. Actually just start a genuine conversation, get to know where they're at and see if you can actually help them. And that may lead to a conversation where you get to share more about what you're up to and build more of a connection as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this stuff, Vera, from your experience in terms of, using Instagram and, creating leads through Instagram as well.
Yeah, Instagram is really a powerful tool. And one thing that I do, I also, before I sort of get the attention of my potential clients, I like to leave a lot of comments. I almost comment on every post that they do, and I try to get noticed. And if I see that they're engaging in conversation, then that would be a great segue for me to send them a DM. I also, as Logan said, like I make it very, very clear that I am available, and there's, they can send me an email, basically just once in a while. I don't do it very often. Maybe I should do it more often, but once in a while I do a post where, I would sort of kind of suggest that I am, available to work. For example, I created these bookmarks that says book me, and then I would sort of like just show the bookmark. That doesn't sound like I'm really promoting, but I am, because it's a bookmark that says book me for for your next project, or things like that. Or and I also use a lot of mockups, like for the personal work. So I make sure that my projects are presented in a way that people can actually see how they can be utilized. So I do a lot of mockup, like I almost mock up all my work. And of course, I showcase my client work. Like whenever I have a book, I make sure, that I showcase that book, that, I make a big deal out of it, like just make a big deal out of everything that you do, because honestly, who is going to do it if not you? So yes, the work you are doing deserves that, and don't be discouraged by the reach. I think everybody's struggling with Instagram and an algorithm, and just keep at it. And some of the posts are going to do better than others, but it is important just to be there, constantly be present there. And also have a community, because the community means sharing. And when people share your work, you share theirs, and you can also promote that way. Just, work with your friends, and especially like, if some of your friends have more audience, then they can, feature your work, you feature their work, because you do have also more audience than somebody else. And you also, and it's always just like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's just the way it works. That's why it's called creative community.
Honestly, this is one of the awesome things about this area of industry of design and illustration, is there's such an amazing community element to it. And, something we do in our programs, as you know, Vera, is we get everyone talking to each other, the people that we're working with, and creating that community, which is such a powerful part of it, because it's pretty lonely. Like, most people are working from home these days. Most people don't necessarily have lots of other visual creatives around them. Some people do, but often they don't necessarily. So this is where, you can actually use tools like Instagram to build and grow that community as well. And yes, like a lot of people say, well, a lot of people that are following me are other creators. Well, that's great. That's part of that creative community. But also there will usually be potential opportunities of people you could connect with and work with as well. So I love that. Awesome. We're going to dive into questions. Just before we do that, I'm going to drop in that link again to the survey. If that's something you wanted to fill out in return, or we'll choose 3 people to have those 30-minute one-on-one coaching calls with me. And then, of course, a few extra calls with Paul from the team as well. So check it out. You can pop it open now if you want, and look at it for after the call. We'll also include that, the link, obviously, in the email we send out afterwards with the recording, if you're watching the recorded version. So look, we're going to jump into Q&A now. So feel free, if you do have a question, pop it in the chat that you want to answer. I'm going to start off with one. We were sent in a couple beforehand, so we'll start with that, and we'll see sort of where we go time-wise as well. So this one was actually related to Instagram again, which was basically, how often should we post on Instagram, Logan? And I think it's, one of the things we can get all a bit frustrated about with like marketers is, you say to a marketer like a question like this, how often should I do this? And they say, well, it depends. And you're like, it depends on what? It's like the most frustrating answer to hear. And so my answer is well, it depends. Maybe I'm, my coaching answer, but I'm just going to give you a couple of things to think about around what does it depend on. And referring back to, I talked about earlier, this idea of your core strategy versus your supporting strategy. So you heard me talk about that there, saying, look, if your core strategy is Instagram, and this is where you spend your time, and this is the way that you want to market, and the way that you do market, and maybe it's the only way you market, that means that you do have to really lean into that. So, once again, I sometimes talk to people who are like, oh yeah, I use, and I'm like, hey, how do you market? And they're like, oh, I use Instagram. And I'm like, great, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I post. And I'm like, great, how often do you post? And they're like, well, once a week. And I go on their profile and they haven't posted in 3 months. And I'm like, okay, well, there's something going on here. So we've got to figure this stuff out. And yes, I know it can be super overwhelming to post. And Vera and I, we're talking about that as well. Absolutely. The algorithm, all those things can be a bit frustrating. But it's really about going, hey, if this is your primary means of marketing and promotion, it does mean that you need to really lean in and post daily. Now, you could do several posts a day, or at least doing several posts per week. So sometimes that's a bit overwhelming, and you've got to kind of build up to that, which I totally get. That totally makes sense as well. But really thinking about in terms of this here, it's about doing what you can and building up how to do more. So if Instagram is your core thing, you do need to also get into Reels. There's lots of Reel tutorials and things online, or find someone who does Reels and talk to them and get them to run you through it. Actually, it's something that on our retreat in Morocco, we literally were on our phones showing there was a few people at the retreat that just hadn't done Reels. We were on our phones and we were showing them the basics of Reels, and they were able to pick things up pretty quickly, which is fantastic as well. You don't need to have the crazy, slick, highly edited Reels that are perfect. No, there's lots of ways to do that as well. So obviously we're not diving into lots of Instagram tips here, but really thinking about that there. But once again, if it's a supporting strategy, you could just do it once a week. You could just post once a week and that's going to be fine. But if you only post once every few months, what may happen, even if people connect with you via referrals, or it's repeat ongoing work, or it is outreach, they might go to your Instagram, they're going to look at it and be like, is this person real? Are they active? Are they still in business? I don't know. They barely posted. There's nothing much here. And it's actually going to lower that level of trust. And it doesn't take much. Maybe it is one per week to, yes, have stuff flowing into your feed and new stuff occasionally as well. But as Vera said, absolutely, we get it as well, because algorithm can be frustrating. Did you have anything else you wanted to kind of add there around frequency of posting, Vera, as we think about that question?
No, you pretty much summarized it all. It's just as often as you can if it's your primary, and if it's not, then just at least be there once a week. So be there. You have to be there, otherwise it's just gonna fall behind, and yeah, nobody's gonna understand if you're still active or not. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
The next question we got was around should I be using Pinterest and TikTok and all the other platforms? And this is I'm going to kind of relate this to the previous question, because once again, it depends. What we tend to see is that it can become, you're suddenly trying to be everywhere, because you have to be, like someone will say to you, you have to be on Pinterest, you have to be on TikTok, you have to have a YouTube channel, you have to be on there, you need to be on Twitter. Like, my answer is like, no, you don't have to be anywhere actually. Focus on one area. So it comes down to that again. Now, maybe you'll have a basic platform set up in some of these different places, but what we tend to see is it depends on how much time you have access to. So yes, like, it is actually great to be on another platform as well. And Pinterest is one you could consider, or LinkedIn. There's other ways you can promote yourself for sure. But if you're going to dilute your time you can spend between two platforms, you're often much better to just focus on one, because that's actually how the algorithms work. They actually want you to more focus on that and spend the time there, rather than dilute it, because you're just going to get less focus overall in terms of the algorithm as well. So look, yes, you definitely can test out other platforms, and you could spend 10% of your energy on something like Pinterest and then 90% on Instagram, but just be very, very aware of ping-ponging between the two. And I've seen this where people, everyone gets frustrated with Instagram. It's been happening for like the whole time of Instagram's existence. Everyone's like, it's changed. I'm like, yes, it's going to keep changing as well. It's going to keep changing and evolving and be different and those things there. But I sometimes see people being like, okay, I'm done with Instagram. It's just the algorithm's too hard. And then they jump on Pinterest and they go there for a few months. And then they're like, oh, it kind of worked okay, but now I'm going to go back to Instagram. And then I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that there. Oh, it's not really working. And they ping pong around and they never really get enough focus on one area. And that can actually mean that they're not building the platform in one place. Focus is so important around these things. And yes, the algorithm can be a nightmare, and yes, engagement will go up and down, but consistently posting good content is something that is still working, will keep working moving forward. Did you have any other thoughts around this one, Vera?
Yeah, I just wanted to add around the algorithm, like what I've noticed happening when you're posting regularly, even though the algorithm is not on your side, and honestly, my reach isn't great. Like, most people are struggling with the reach, but one thing I've noticed, my followers are growing. So it doesn't matter. The success of your Instagram doesn't lie in success of one post. It actually lies in the overall success and consistency that you are on that platform. So the more you're there, your followers will be growing. Of course, pay attention to the content and what type of content works best and grabs the most attention. And then just keep pushing that and keep focusing on the content. I think everything else you have to sort of ignore because it's not in your control. Just control what you can. And we just got the huge thunderstorm here. I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but yeah, hopefully I don't lose power.
That's all good. That's all good. I heard a little rumble there, so there we go. Cool.
Yeah.
So we've got a question here from Janie. Apart from own network, I think that is, how can we market to art directors? So this is a really interesting one because often it's like, how do we get the dream client? How do we get in front of them? So there's several things you can do here, which is be very clear about what types of art directors you want to connect with. That's a really cool thing because then you know where to look. So we're talking about cold emailing. You can then search for those sorts of organizations and go and do the research to find them. Now, there's one way to do it, right? So you do, people are like, how do I find them? I'm like, honestly, Googling is actually what people often do. Googling to find them, surfing around. The other thing you can also do is look around at who other creatives are working with, what other organizations they're working with. That's going to give you some tips as to who is hiring and who is working with people, who is collaborating. And you can actually go see and do some research and find out the information that way as well. There are lists. So, you know, sometimes you can get free lists of people you can contact. You can get paid lists of people you can contact. You can definitely do that. We generally find the problem with these lists is that everyone is messaging because everyone loves the idea of having a name they can contact. So that's just something to be mindful of, as those people tend to get a lot of emails. Sometimes you can go on some sites and they might have an application process where you can enter your information or put your portfolio. So you don't necessarily need to email the art director. You still could, but you could actually upload or fill in, you know, the information, put your information on there as well. So there's a couple of ideas to definitely think about there, Janie, as well. Did you have any extra thoughts you wanted to add to that, Vera, just as we start to wrap up?
No, that's pretty much it. Like, just, it's really important. One thing I wanted to add, actually, in terms of finding those people, I really use LinkedIn all the time. And it's just, even if you know who the organization is, you can go under people and then enter art directors, and just, you're going to get a whole list and then do the digging, like per name, see who is still active, who is not, because you know, a lot of those LinkedIn profiles may not be updated and stuff like that, but it's a great tool as well to find the people you want to show your work to.
I think, you know, one of the things here is people often say, like, where's the shortcut to find all the contacts? And it's like, well, that's kind of maybe the list, but it doesn't really exist, right? This stuff, it is quite manual. It does take research. It does take going on LinkedIn and doing the Googling and those things there as well. It takes time. Right, it takes time,
Yeah.
and yeah, we get that as well. We are going to be doing wrap up because I'm just very much aware of time. So I would love everyone to put in one takeaway from today. What's one thing they've found interesting from this workshop, from this webinar? What's something you found helpful? If you can just fire something into the chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. It's, you know, it's really about helping to consolidate your learnings and also help us see what was useful for you, and also help remind others of some of the things we covered. So do you want to just everyone share some of the takeaways from today? Yeah, this is definitely a good one there. Stacey. And sorry, we didn't quite get to your question. Focus on core strategy for market. Absolutely. Shannon, always helpful. Excited to see the full talk at a later time, but I caught the second half. Awesome, Shannon. Absolutely. We're sending that recording out soon. What else was helpful? Anything else others want to share into the chat? I know often, you know, we share a lot of different things here as well. And usually there's 1, 2, or 3 things that really clicks for people and a good thing to really lean into as well. So feel free to share anything else that popped up for you that you found really useful in the chat, just as we start to do our wrap up. Awesome, and we've got some people already starting to fill in the form. That's very, very cool as well. Look, we are going to start to wrap up. Honestly, it's just been such a delight doing another webinar with you, Vera. We had a blast in our last one. So we're like, let's definitely do another one. And here we are again. So we'll have to do another one. Awesome. So we're going to wrap things up, but thanks for having me along.
Thank you for joining us. And thank you everyone who came to this live and everyone who didn't, but they're going to see the replay, and we're going to be sending that soon. We really enjoyed sharing all our knowledge and experience with you, and hope to do it again. It's awesome.
Amazing.
It's
Thank
always
you.
great.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. Hey, take care. We'll see you soon.
See you
Ciao.
soon. Bye.